Hello friends and greetings for the day. Welcome back to another tutorial of our software testing bootcamp where we are talking about the fundamental concepts of software testing. We are in chapter 7 talking about the test tools contribution to the test process, and today we'll be stepping into the next segment of this chapter, which is 7.2 benefits and risk of testing. The tools can certainly have great benefits and risk involved. So we would like to understand what are the benefits which we can really have great returns from, and what are the risks which we should be taking into account before rolling out a tool for the organization. To very well get started, the very first thing we would like to promote is, of course, the benefits of having a tool. And the tool is anything which assists you with any kind of activities which we are trying to perform as a part of the test process. Now, tool is any such product which is going to help you with any such activity which you perform as a test process. Now, two important things to understand: that any software can be called as a test tool. Any method can be supported with a test tool. Any kind of activity can be supported with test tool. So we must just have to recognize that where is the pain point in your process and how exactly we can make most out of the opportunity. Now, it's not necessary that you always blindly go for a tool. It is very important to determine that if it is really needed to go for a tool and you're finding it really complicated, you're finding it difficult to do it without help of a tool, right? Because manual sometimes could be consuming a lot of effort, sometimes involving a lot of budget, sometimes not even possible to perform, as we have understood in our previous tutorials, right? And here it certainly gives you a great analysis to determine and consider several factors which decides that, hey, will that be a tool which is going to help us here and minimize our effort, reduce the cost, increase the productivity, and sort of thing. So the most important thing before we start talking about the benefits is to judge if that is really going to be helpful. And that's where the benefits would add more value to help you determine if the tool is really going to be something helpful for all of you. Now, talking about the benefits of test tools, the potential benefits of the use test tools to support test activities or execution specifically include reduction in repetitive manual work. Now, manual work here certainly means that your interaction with the system. Now, what if I have to run a test with multiple test data? Now, the single test has to be executed with multiple set of test data, and that's called as repetitive testing. Repeating the same set of actions with multiple instances of data, and that could be tedious. Sometimes you want to run 50 test data, 100 test data, one after the other, to make sure that all the valid data is accepted. Now, this is where you can reduce your effort and automate it. You can make use of a tool to prepare your test data. You can make use of a tool to execute your test cases. You can use the tool to parameterize the test and do it with ease, like data-driven framework. Now, I'm talking about a lot of new words here, but of course, these are going to be a part of our discussion when you talk about the automation tools. Talking about greater consistency and repeatability, it certainly means that consistency in your executions, which certainly talks about how exactly the information is being gathered back from the execution. Now, tools are considered to be very consistent in terms of returning the details very accurate and the same results if you run a test multiple times without any changes, as far as the script, data, and the application remains the same. If anything of these three parameters changes, the result will certainly change, right? Talking about more objective assessments, not necessarily that everything can be just done without the reference of the tool. Sometimes mapping things or doing some kind of measurements like coverage measurements. For example, when you talk about unit testing, you do have to measure the functional coverage, conditional coverage. Doing that manually, comparing that your test cases with that of the code, could be resulting into miscalculations or may not exactly give you the right percentage that how much code coverage have you really achieved with set of those test cases. So these kind of tools can really help you to execute the executions, that is unit frameworks, and can also be capable enough to return you back the coverage measurements would be a great thing. Also, easier access to information. Sometimes just managing everything in a tool just helps you to organize things in a systematic way. and just helps you to find the things in the right corner of your cupboard when you need them, right? So easier access to information about testing is just about organizing your content in a very simple and sound way, which results into a great asset at the same time. Adding more value from the second part of it, that is risk of using a test tool. And again, we are not scaring you that you should not use tools at all. We are trying to kind of prepare you that, hey, these are the several factors which you need to consider before using a test tool. Now, to be frank, it's going to be a major responsibility for a test lead or a test manager to determine and select a tool and consider all these risk factors before selecting a tool from the market. But given a tester should also understand that what are the protocols, what are the parameters which we really have to take into account when it comes to shortlisting a tool, or just understanding that why a tool is used in the organization. Is it just like you go to Google, download it and start using it? And now it takes really a great effort to finalize it, right? Talking about the first point, expectation for the tool may be unrealistic. It's not necessary that you download a tool and start using it, and that's simple the tools could be. Sometimes the tools are slightly complicated to get started and have some initial setup required configuration. Sometimes it does need a programming language in terms of automation to get started. And not just writing your script is what I'm talking about. We're talking about building up libraries, building up jar files, building up classes, which would be readable in terms of running your test. So putting it all together, sometimes you underestimate a tool in terms of start using it. So sometimes expectations can be unrealistic. You thought it will be easy, but it is not. The time, cost, and effort for initial introduction of the tool may be underestimated. Generally, people think that, oh, come on, my team is an automation expert, and it certainly gives them a great understanding of what are the tools, how to use them. So if I roll out a new automation tool to them, it would be very simple and kind of peanuts for them to go ahead and get started. No, not at all. It's not necessary. Sometimes the team is aware of one tool, but the other tool may have a different architecture, may have a different programming language, and the way it gets configured is also different. So do not underestimate the time, cost, effort required to introduce a tool. The effort required to maintain the test assets generated by the tool may be underestimated. The assets which are generated, the files which are populated by an automation test tool, could be another challenge which may be underestimated. So we may have to configure a path where all the files can be saved and, if required, can be referred at any point of time. The tool may be relied on too much. Buying an automated washing machine, you thought that the washing machine will roam around your house and look forward to the dirty clothes and start picking up and start washing them. Not at all. It's just a robot, and don't forget, a robot still needs instructions to do something, right? So even a automatic washing machine needs instructions from you. You need to bring the clothes, put in, program it, direct it, and then start the washing. It will do all other work automatically. That's it. So same here, we have to still instruct the tool to do the job. Version control of the test assets may be neglected. When you run a test with multiple iterations, the revisions are created, and the revisions needs to be maintained just like any other documentation. Relationships and interoperability issues between critical tools may be neglected. You might be using two different tools from the same vendor, and it could be another challenge to understand that you don't even know that these two tools can be integrated and they can exchange data between them. Just for an example, if I'm talking about ALMA UFT, if I'm talking about Jira and GitHub, right? Pretty much a lot of people don't know that can I integrate the GitHub with Jira and they can exchange information. And that's what you call it as interoperability. And you were still doing it manually, like going to GitHub, doing something, coming to Jira, updating it here manually. So that manual effort can be excused or reduced. Tool vendor may go out of business. Now, generally people think about tool all the time, but do not think about the vendor providing you that tool. Sometimes it's also risky enough to understand that the vendor may promote their product initially. You may get excited by the tool and maybe they shut down next day after you purchase it. after you start using their tool. Now, a lot of your code is already there and you're stuck in between and you don't have any support. So you may have to be careful, do the analysis in that way that your vendor will exist and will retain and be supportive for a long time, at least till the project is going on. The vendor may provide a poor response. Maybe the vendor continues to exist, but whenever you want to reach them, they do not have any kind of life support available for you, or they generally take time to come back to you or support you on any of your problems, and that could cause a lot of delay and project risk for your operations. The open source project may be suspended given that open source are available free of cost. You don't really have to, pay anything for using them, so they can anytime suspend them, and suspending could be another challenge. A new platform or technology may not be supported. Your organization decided to migrate from Windows 7 to 8, and you realize your products vendors have not yet made them compatible with Windows 8, so that could be another problem, right? There may be no clear ownership of the tool. That means internally you need to identify an administrator for the tool who will be taking the ownership to support the team members internally, including the training, coaching, mentoring, or configuring the tool, setting up the tool, updates of the tool, making sure the backups are maintained. A lot of things which generally the administrator takes care of and supports you with. So that's where the ownership would be another important thing to take care of, because sometimes you just buy the tool but you don't know how to operate it, right? So putting it up all together, getting a tool and start using it is not so simple. We have to consider a lot of factors in order to introduce a tool for the organization. And on top of it, there are several other factors which we see at the organization level, at the project level, to finally roll out a tool to the organization. But these are the factors which you need to consider if you anyhow think that we need a tool, right? Then you have to just answer these questions first, attend these factors first before you say, all right, we are good to go with the tool, right? So that's all from this particular tutorial, team. Should you have anything else, feel free to comment below. I'm always there to address your queries and answer them well. Till then, keep learning, keep exploring, keep understanding the context. Thanks for watching the video, team, and happy learning.